Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Product Market Fit with Pavan Katepalli, Part 2. My name is Colin Mahan, and I'm a program manager at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the Nasdaq Center is a nonprofit dedicated to enabling entrepreneurs from all over the world to realize their maximum potentials and grow. As you may have just seen in the chat, the Nasdaq Center, along with our partner Mentor Cloud, launched a free mentor matching platform for entrepreneurs called Mentor Makers. Create your own advisory board to guide and inspire you with in-the-moment mentorship from topic experts and professionals dedicated to providing exceptional mentorship for entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So find or become a mentor today by using the link in the chat. Mentorship matters to all entrepreneurs. Their success is dependent on it. Now, none of what we do here at the center could be possible without all the amazing support from our sponsors, including Nasdaq, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, and BPM. We're humbled by their contributions. Quick housekeeping before we get started. We're going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event, so please submit your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. We hope to get to them all. I'm sure there will be many. During these still unique times, we're curious on how sentiment is among the entrepreneurs we work with. So before we get started, I'm going to launch a poll real quick to just let us know how you're feeling today. How are you doing? How are you feeling with regards to your business? Brian's video said it has frozen. I'm not sure if it's just you, but let us know if everyone else is going. I'm going to let this go for another moment or so. Thanks for your votes. I'm going to share these results. Looks like optimism's on the rise, but totally understand that some of you are just surviving, anxious, and have a little fearfulness out there. Hopefully, this presentation today will alleviate some of those surviving and anxiety feelings that you're having, which are totally understandable. So without any further delay, and backed by popular demand, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest, Pavan. He's a serial entrepreneur, angel investor, and former early-stage C-suite executive at Trilogy Education Services. Pavan, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Colin. Appreciate the intro. Thanks for that, man. Thank you to everyone who just came in here. I'm really looking forward to present what I've learned over the years and just really put together. At first, it was mainly for me because I wanted to make sure that when I do my next company that I do it right. And yeah, so let me share my presentation with you. So go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Look good, everyone? I think it looks good. Yeah, so
looks great.
Awesome, Colin, thank you. So we did a talk. Colin, Isis put together a talk with me on product market fit previously, and I won't be going through those topics. Basically, I talk about your team, like the process that you should employ of pivoting, when to pivot, how to focus on one specific feature. I start going into retention curves and whatnot. So if you haven't seen the previous presentation, I urge you to see that. And I include my email at the very end of the presentation, so you could always reach out and ask questions. So this talk's mainly about how to find, talk, and learn from your users, which as an executive, as an entrepreneur, this is your main job. This is your main job. Building your product is secondary to this. This is the main thing. This is everything. This is everything. So we're going to really dive into this because this is something I was really bad at. So here, let's go ahead. So this is me. In 2019, I got, really lucky with Trilogy. I was part of a great team. The timing was perfect. We had product market fit, and we got acquired for $750 million. After that, I became a mentor at 500 startups at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center right here. And I get to work with Colin and Isis, and it's great. the Alchemist Accelerator. They're more of like an enterprise accelerator. And I've invested in a 500 startups company and an Alchemist company, not yet a Nasdaq company, but I'm looking forward to doing that. So I've invested in 8 companies since 2019. I like to stay in close contact with my companies and try to help them as much as I possibly can. And so I was a programmer for a long time. And so specialized in like real-time systems and blockchain. And up until recently, I haven't done anything with blockchain. Like I haven't done a blockchain company. I worked as a lobbyist for like a volunteer lobbyist, not like a paid lobbyist, a volunteer lobbyist for the California fur ban. So the law passed in 2019 to ban fur farming and fur sales in California. And you don't think fur in California, but it was $40 million in sales a year of fur. So we were able to knock it out, and a lot of retailers are now, because California is such a huge population of America, they're just not doing fur anymore because of that law. And I got to see the whole political process, and it was so interesting. In America, we're really lucky in that we have such easy access to talking to our government officials. I founded 3 previous companies that did not get product market fit. So I know what it's like to get some traction, but not get traction where where things are easy. Right now, I pivoted my company from a gaming platform to casual games where the characters are NFTs and you can earn tokens while playing. So I just recently made this pivot in August, based off of the previous talk that I gave. I'm going to just give you a little intro into who I am and where I come from. This is me in 1999. I got really lucky and I learned JavaScript and HTML in 1999 in New Jersey. And I learned it from a friend of mine. So I learned, oh, that's my brother. So that's me and that's my brother. And so this is Vlad. And Vlad, great guy. He just didn't want to do his math homework one day. And he said, I will make you a Dragon Ball Z website, because he knew I love Dragon Ball Z. It's a cartoon that kids like. And he said, I'll make you your own Dragon Ball Z website if you just do my homework for me. And I did his homework for him, and he made me a Dragon Ball Z website. And I bothered him constantly to add updates to it. And one day he got fed up, and he just taught me how to update the website. So he taught me HTML, he taught me a little bit of JavaScript, and he taught me how to use a file transfer protocol, FTP. And so with that knowledge, I was able to start web development. That was
Pavan, real quick. Sorry to interrupt, my good friend. The slide looks like it's doing a funny, like almost showing the first slide on the top right of my screen.
Oh, weird.
You want to try popping in and out again and see if we can?
Sure. You want me to come out of the Zoom and come back?
Just try stop sharing screen and then go back in and see if on the same slide that you were just on.
Sure, no problem.
I'm not sure if it was just me. Boom. All right, it's gone. All right, awesome.
Okay, cool.
Now you're all good. Good luck.
Well, no problem, man. Yeah, thanks for pausing me there. Appreciate that. So I used this slide previously in my other presentation, but just defining product market fit. People have books on this, but it's pretty simple. It's when your customers find a lot of value in what you're making. They buy your product, they recommend it to other people on their own, right? You're not asking them, hey, can you recommend this? They're just recommending it on their own. And then they're using it on a repeat basis, right? And when this is happening, everything's easy for you. right? Like, let's say you make mistakes. Let's say you hire two executives and and they don't pan out and you have to fire them. It doesn't matter. You're still growing. You're still accelerating. VCs are reaching out to you, right? The news is reaching out to you. Everything is just easy when you have product market fit. When you don't have product market fit, everything's hard. You have to work hard. And that's the majority of companies, right? It's not, this is like getting lucky almost, right? But the point of these presentations is to hopefully get to add some skill into the equation, right? To get lucky a little bit more than other people. Okay, so going over here, vision. Often everyone talks about vision, right? They're like, what's your vision for your company? And you get wrapped up in the future. You get wrapped up into this vision of where you think the world is going and what your company will be like in the future. And that's important, right? It's important for you to understand where the world is going and have a thesis of that. But that's all it should be, right? It should just be something that you tell your team, your investors, that you understand, right? And that you're keeping track of. Your vision isn't your company, right? Your vision is a trap, right? Because the future isn't where the world is right now. You have to build for where the world is, not for tomorrow, right? So case study with Netflix. So Netflix was started in 1997 by Reed Hastings, right? And Mark. And I think Mark. I forget the other co-founder's name. That's terrible. But yeah, so Reed Hastings started Netflix in 1997. And what was happening in 1997? Internet service providers didn't have broadband. Like, there was broadband, but not everyone had access to it. Of course, the future was going with broadband available in many, many areas of America and parts of the world. But in 1997, that wasn't the case. On top of that, the browsers didn't allow streaming. And Reed Hastings saw the future. He knew that browsers will eventually evolve. He knew that streaming would be possible in browsers. He knew that streaming would be available in TVs. He knew that internet service providers would provide broadband. He didn't know when, but he knew in the future it's going to happen. But he built for today, right? So you need to build for today. Today, in 1997, was DVDs, right? So that's why it was a rental business, right? It was a DVD rental business in the beginning. And then, even though Reed Hastings saw tomorrow, he just kept it in mind, right? He kept it in mind. And he, as Netflix was successful, right? He had product market fit, right? That's when he started analyzing his customers and started seeing how many of them are using broadband, right? And then as he saw his customers, a certain number of them actually have broadband, and a certain number of them are using the correct browser that have the correct codecs in them. That's when he knew that streaming is ready, right? The vision was important because, he wouldn't know to do those things if he wasn't, if he didn't have this specific vision in his mind, because then he wouldn't be keeping track of it. But his entire business was built on what was happening right now, right? So your vision is a trap. Focus on today. Have the vision, right? Because that's what keeps you excited, right? That's what keeps your team motivated. It's hope for tomorrow. It's exciting, and it's exciting for investors, right? Because I want to know that you know the future as an investor. Like, what does the future look like? And I hope you know it, and I hope we can get there, right? But you should be building for today. So how do you build for today, right? Well, it's pretty simple. You or someone close has a problem, right? And you have an idea, a solution. And that's how it all starts, right? You have a solution for a problem. And right, but what if you're the only person in the world with this that wants this solution for this problem? I mean, it's unimaginable when you come up with the solution that you're the only one in the entire world that will want this solution, but it's possible. It's possible, and that's what you should have in your mind, right? If you haven't started talking to people about your company, then this is a possibility for sure, right? And the way you mitigate this is you talk to people, right? You should talk to people who want this, right? Before or as you build, right? And that's what this entire presentation is about, right? This entire presentation, if you take one thing away, is that you should talk to people who want what you're building before or as you build your product. And who should you talk to? In the beginning, it's going to be anyone who's going to listen to you, right? Most likely your family and your friends, right? People that support you no matter what. Those are the people that you want to talk to. Maybe in today's day and age, it's easier to reach out to someone on LinkedIn cold and start a conversation, but someone new isn't going to, just give you their network out of the blue, right? It'll take time to develop that relationship, but your family and your friends, they know you and they will make introductions for you. So that's who you should go to initially. And I'm sorry, I just skipped a slide. I just realized that. So who should you really talk to? Who should you be looking for, right? And you should be looking for good customers. And I talked about this in my previous presentation, but I want to reiterate this because it's so important. Who is a good customer? It's someone who is actively spending their time, their resources, their money towards solving the problem that you're trying to solve on a regular basis, right? So if you're trying to solve calendar management, right, in a very specific way, like working across time zones and calendar management, and you have a very specific problem and a very specific solution, you're looking for people with that specific problem. And you're looking for people that are actually solving it, right? How do you know that someone actually has a problem, right? The only way you know for sure is if they're trying to treat the problem, right? For sure. It's like if someone says they have a cavity, like a dentist can tell them they have a cavity, right? And if they have a filling, you know that they had the problem, right? A filling. But as like a normal person, and if you're not a dentist, if someone tells you they have a cavity, but they didn't get it filled, like you won't really know for sure that they had a cavity, right? So you're looking for, that's a terrible example, but that's the one I use. I went to the dentist recently. I hope everyone is going to the dentist. It's really important. So you're looking for people that are actively trying to solve the problem that you're solving, right? And you want people that are experiencing this problem frequently, not people that experienced it 10 years ago. Oh, I experienced this problem 10 years ago, 5 years ago. We solved it. It's done, right? It's good to talk to them, but they're not like a good customer. You want to make sure they have a big enough budget to be able to solve this problem. And you want them to be a decision maker. You want them to be able to solve this problem for themselves, right? So let's say there's a problem at McDonald's. And this was actually in, I think, the New York Times, where the ice cream machines don't work at McDonald's. And the FTC is getting involved because they never work. And if you're a McDonald's employee, you might complain that the ice cream machine is always broken. It's constantly broken. But they're not in they're not powerful enough to be able to solve this problem for themselves, right? So you can talk to them. It's good to talk to them, but understand that they're not the decision maker. Yeah. And then what you'll get out of this. Well, number one, you're in this pursuit of finding good customers. By going on this journey of finding these good customers, you're figuring out how to reach your target users. You're figuring that out. And so these people, they might become your customers, or they could provide introductions, right? And in addition, you're going to learn a lot about the problem that they encountered, right? And you're going to learn context around it. You're going to learn whether it is the most important problem that they're solving. You're going to learn if it's the biggest problem that they're solving. You're going to learn how they encountered it, right? You're going to learn so much about the problem, and you're going to learn about how to get to your target users by doing this. So it is the most important thing for you to do, right? So how do you find these good customers, right? So introductions from your family and friends, that's number one. Reaching out on LinkedIn, that's good. It'll take time though. You should expect 3 to 6 months of doing this, and then it'll bear some fruit. Going to conferences is great. That's a great place to meet a lot of people. A lot of them are online right now, but it's still worthwhile to go to these conferences because you might meet people. A little trick that I use when I go to a conference or a meetup is I find the host and I ask the host, hey, I'm looking to speak to someone with this background. And could you introduce me? That works sometimes. Sometimes I'll come in with specific people in mind that I want them to introduce me to. And the hosts are really nice and they'll make the introduction for you. So that's a great trick when you're going to conferences and meetups. And you want to go where your target customer is, right? Or where they would go to. So if you have a fitness supplement company, then you want to go to a gym or to a beach, right? Most likely those people are in those locations. And that's a great place to talk to them. It's harder now with the coronavirus for sure. So that is challenging. So there are other places you might be able to talk to them, perhaps on Twitch in the fitness section. You could go there and then you could talk to people that are working out through chat. So there are more problems. When you're talking to these people, it's not about that one problem, right? It's not a binary. Let's say they say, let's say you start talking to a manager at a company, and that manager, they say, yeah, I don't really have this problem. I don't really have this problem. It's not binary. You don't stop talking to them. What other problems does this manager have, right? Dig, right? You have a shovel, right? Your questions are your shovel and you're digging and you're trying to find all of their problems. Their problems are all buried under the ground and you're just digging. You might find one, but there are 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 more problems, right? And you only care about the problems that they're actively trying to solve, right? The problems that they frequently have, the problems where they're actively deploying a budget towards, or resources towards, right? You're finding those problems. So you want to dig into your good customer, right? When talking, dig out all those unaddressed needs. And it's hard. It is difficult. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, right? Because you're literally looking for a problem that just isn't being addressed. And there's so many companies out there. So by you doing this, it's going to be difficult, but not everyone is doing this. So you have an advantage if you are actually doing this. Remember, the problem must be, something frequent, big budget, and they're actively trying to solve it. And you won't, and I just mentioned, I mentioned this last bullet point right here. Your questions are your shovel, right? And you're digging. So I developed this like acronym called Wemp, and it's to help you develop your market thesis. And this isn't that hard. It's essentially just when you're talking to these people, you're just trying to figure out who your target user is, and you're just writing it down, right? You're already probably recording the conversation or taking detailed notes during the conversation. This is just to help you organize those notes, right? So you want to, who is this person that is your target user? What's their career, right? What are their hobbies? What's their family situation? Are they married? Do they have kids? What's their health situation? Are they sick, or are they really healthy? Are they always working out? Are they super into taking supplements or fasting? Or like, you're trying to learn about them. So you're trying to figure this out during the interview process. And then effort, right? W was who is your user? And then E is effort. Like, what effort is this person putting in to solve this problem or any problem? Like, what are they doing already to solve the problem? You want to make sure that they're actively trying to solve the problem, and the problems are those are the problems that you want to really listen to, right? Like, if they say, well, I'm not solving the problem that you're telling me you're talking about, but there's this thing, and man, I spend all my time on it. I spend all my time on this problem. And you should be like, oh wow, what is this problem? Why are you spending all your time on it? And what, like, no one has a solution for this problem, and you have your entire budget on this, and it's taking all your team's time. Maybe as an entrepreneur, you should focus on that problem, maybe, right? So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for any problem, right? In this pursuit, which is why you're doing this before you build. You're doing this before you build, and you're doing this as you build. Also, you're always listening. You're always looking for that unaddressed need, right? Slack was a video game before Slack, and Discord was, and they just passed a $12 billion acquisition from Microsoft. They passed on that. Discord was a gaming studio before Discord. If you're not listening, you're a small business almost, right? You're trapping yourself into becoming into a small business mindset. Whereas we're not small business entrepreneurs. Although you could become a multimillionaire from building a small business. We're industrial entrepreneurs. So we need to constantly listen. Motivation, like why are they trying to solve this problem, right? And what's their motivation to solve this problem? Are they trying to rise up in their career? Does their job depend on solving this problem? Is it painful for them? Is the work getting terrible because this problem exists? Figure out their motivation. Like, why do they truly want to solve this problem, right? And then the problem itself, like, what is the unaddressed need? Like, what is exactly the unaddressed need? This might not be the one that you came to them to talk about, right? You might have came to them to talk about this problem, but the unaddressed need, the problem that they're frequently trying to solve, actively trying to solve, that might be different than what you came to them for. And you want to use their own words, right? You don't want to describe it in your words. You want to describe it in their words. You want to use their words. And the reason why you want to use their words is because that's how you can communicate to other people, right? When people see their own words, your target user, they'll relate to it much better. So make sure you write down their words. If you can record the conversation, that's great. This is the next part, right? So don't be rigid on your target user unless you are wildly successful and everything is working out, and customers are buying on a repeat basis. They're recommending you. Everything's easy. If that's not the case, then don't be rigid on your target user, right? You could be wrong. You could be wrong on who your target user is. Just because you have 10 people buying your product and on a repeat basis and using it, unless you're growing rapidly, right? Unless they're recommending you and you're growing rapidly, maybe your target user, maybe there's a different target user, right? Maybe there's a different target user. So don't be rigid. Dropbox initially was for us university students. Is that their only target user? No, it's great for business. It's great for personal use. They didn't stop right there with students. Just because the students were using it, they didn't focus on students for the rest of their lives. So let's get down to the questions. What questions should you be asking your target user, right? Your good customer, right? During these interviews, what should you be actually talking about? Now, these aren't the exact questions you might ask, but I'm just giving you an idea, right? It's a good template. So what's the hardest part about doing this thing, right? You're trying to extract the pain points, the big details of the pain points that they're experiencing. What's the hardest part about doing this thing, right? And let's talk about Dropbox, right? So with Dropbox, it was started by 2 university students. And if we think about the co-founders of Dropbox, right? And if we think about they're in the university, they're in the computer lab, right? When I went to school, there was a computer lab where you could go and print things. And I'm sure that exists today too. Actually, probably not. It makes no sense to have that. You should just email your papers and stuff. I don't even know why we were printing out anything back when I was in school, because we could have just emailed it. But anyway, we had a computer lab. So for Dropbox, the co-founders, Drew, and I think Alex, they were in the computer lab and they asked people around them, right, about how, they were working on projects. And they might have heard these pain points, right? When people were working on projects or papers or together, you have to log onto a shared computer. You have to get files from somewhere. Maybe you have a network drive attached to the university system, but you're working with someone that doesn't have access to a university computer. So these might be some problems, pain points, right? You have to be on a shared computer. You have to have, you have to get your files all synced up somewhere. And someone might not even have access to be able to log on to a shared computer. And there's problems with synchronization of the shared work. You're both working on the exact same document, the exact same time. Back when Dropbox launched, Google Docs wasn't really a thing. It was very, very early prototype. So it wasn't really around. That would be the preferred way probably to collaborate on a document. But back then it wasn't there. Now you need to ask them how are you currently trying to solve this problem, right? How are you currently trying to address these pain points? And maybe the students tell Drew, we all work in the same room. We all work in the same room. And now notice how nowhere during this conversation, Drew is pitching Dropbox, right? You're not pitching your company when you're asking these questions. You're just asking, you're digging for those unaddressed needs, right? Those unaddressed needs that they experience frequently and are pain points, and they're investing their time, money, and resources into trying to solve. Second question, tell me about the last time you encountered this problem. So this way you can get the exact context around the circumstances that the user, that led the user to encounter this problem, right? You want to find the history, right? What's the history that led the user to this specific problem? And you can find that by asking this specific question, right? So you have this problem today, but when was the last time you had it? You're also trying to figure out the frequency. So with Dropbox, this question might lead you to think, who were the students that you were working with for this project? What was this project for? Like, what class was it for? Was it for computer science? Was it for English? Right? And this is going to help you, right? How is this going to help? How is this going to help you? You're going to figure out, oh, well, we shouldn't target computer science students because they don't work together. We should target English students because they collaborate together. Or maybe it's not English class, maybe it's history class. And then we should just focus on history students. We should just talk to a ton of history students, and we should focus our product around history students, right? Imagine if you focus your project around computer science students. They don't even work together. They just work individually. That's a terrible target user to focus and build your product around, right? But that is what most people probably would do. Let's say you are a computer science student. You would probably build for a computer science student because you are a computer science student. But by talking to your users, by asking them these questions, you'll figure out who has this problem frequently, right? Who has this problem and they're actively trying to solve it, and it's a big pain point. And those are the people that you should really, really focus on. And what's great about this is you have a real life example. You have a real life example of the problem, right? And you can overlay your solution, right? And see if it actually works, right? And mentally, you can overlay your solution and be like, oh, well, it actually fits this perfectly, or it doesn't fit this perfectly. We have to modify it to fit this specific problem, right? In this specific way. The next question: when did you first encounter this problem? Now, this might be redundant, right? Because it's the history, right? But maybe the person you're talking to didn't really answer it perfectly, right? Maybe they went off on a tangent. So this question could help you figure out the history, right? And figure out why, right? So why did it happen then? Why did the problem happen to you then? Why didn't it happen to you before then, right? You're trying to really dig into it. Think of yourself as like an interviewer. You have your own talk show, you're an interviewer, and this is your guest. And you're trying to really bring out their story, right? For the audience. That's you, right? That's what you're trying to do. You're digging out everything. Why was this past problem you encountered so hard? Right. So this is you got the details of the pain points from the first question, but you want to get the minute details, the exact words, and you want to get the exact words of them. And this is going to help you figure out the benefits of your product to your users, right? The value, right? The value that you're driving to your users, right? And you can use these exact words in your emails, in your newsletters, in your interviews, when you're pitching clients, in your conversations, in your decks. You can use this everywhere, in your ads, right? Because people don't buy they don't buy the what, they buy the why, right? That they buy the why. They don't buy cloud-based file storage. That's not what's going to sell Dropbox. What's going to sell Dropbox is, you're not going to lose any work when you're working on a project. You will not lose any work when you're working on a project. That's the why. That's why they're buying Dropbox, not because it's a cloud-based file storage system. That is not why. That's the what, not the why. So for Dropbox, it's duplicate work, right? Or in the end, my new problem might be they submitted the wrong document, the wrong version at the very end. I've done that. And oh man, I remember having to speak to professors about, this is not my paper. This is my paper, right? I submitted you my work from yesterday. I'm sorry, I just screwed up. That's happened to me before. I've lost work previously when I was in college, when I was working on group projects. people would email me something and they would email me the wrong version of the document or something that they were working on, because just versions get screwed up when you're emailing the document to each other. So you'll figure out the minute problems. Like, this is what you're going to communicate. You're like, has this ever happened to you? And your target audience will be like, yeah, that's the exact terrible problem that's happened to me. You're telling me that Dropbox solves this? Okay, sign me up. Why was this past problem you encountered so hard? Same question, right? And like I said, they don't buy the what, they buy the why. So you got to figure out the why. This question drives out the why, right? And you can communicate that to your target audience. In the next question, what, if anything, have you done to try to solve the problem? Now you're trying to figure out, are they actively trying to solve the problem? And if they're not trying to actively try to solve this problem, then this isn't an important problem to them, right? And you might have to figure out their other problems, right? Because it might not be the only problem that they have. Let's say they tell you about another problem. They told you, hey, if you solve this for me right now, I have like $1 million budget to solve this problem. Please solve this for me, right? Look for the other problems if they don't have this specific problem, because everyone has some problems. But let's say they are actively trying to solve this problem. Let's say they actively are trying to solve this problem. Well, what are they actively using? That's what people are going to compare you to, right? And that's important to understand, right? You might already have an idea of what you compare to, but it's important for you to understand what people who have this problem, what are they using already to solve this problem, right? That's important for you to understand, because that's what they're going to decide. That's their deciding factor. They see your ad, they're like, I think your product is better than this product. That's what they're going to compare you to. So for Dropbox, the way students solve file synchronization is they get into the same room together. Maybe they set up rsync with the FTP, but that's probably just the super technical students. Maybe they experiment with email, right? Every time you write a paragraph, you email it to each other, right? Maybe they have their own system for working on a project. And yeah, I just mentioned this, right? The ways that Dropbox is solving this problem, this is what the substitutes for your product are, right? And if the substitutes are significantly better than the way that you would solve the problem, then this might not be a problem that you want to solve, right? So Dropbox is obviously better than all these solutions, right? Dropbox is 10 times better than all these solutions right here. If your product isn't 10 times better than the current way that they're doing things, it's probably not the problem you want to solve. You want to be 10 times better. And when I say 10 times better, I don't mean 10 times more features. I mean just 10 times better in one specific problem, right? File synchronization. Dropbox is 10 times better, right? I mean, sure, you can't speak to people in real time when you use Dropbox, but that's not the problem, right? Like, you want to focus on one problem that they have a huge pain point of, that they frequently experience and they're actively trying to solve. And if you could focus on that one problem and solve it 10 times better than the current substitutes out there for that specific user, then you have something. You really, really have something then. And then what don't you love about the solutions you've tried? Now, this is where the feature set is going to come from, right? They're going to tell you that, I really wish that this invoice tool had a better way, looked better. Because I give this invoice out to my clients and then it looks like garbage. And all the invoice tools out there just make terrible invoices. I actually met an entrepreneur recently who built a business CRM company. It's a business CRM, and there's a million out there, So many. Salesforce is huge, right? Competing with Salesforce. And the one feature that he focused on, that he noticed that his users really hated, were the invoices. So he made the invoices look beautiful. Like, they look so pretty. And he knew that that would help his clients sell more to customers. And people are signing up to his business CRM company because his invoices look beautiful. Crazy, right? He has like no other features other than an invoice generator. Yet people are signing up and paying monthly for this invoice generator. And this is the first feature in his business CRM. So focus on that one problem, solve it 10 times better, and you'll learn about what that should be, what that should look like from this question, right? You'll learn about the beginning of the feature set. You don't want to ask, what features do you want, right? What features do you want in this solution? Because again, that's tomorrow. That's the future. You want to focus on today, not tomorrow, right? Most of the time, people don't know what they want, right? But here's the thing: they might tell you what they want, and I'll address this in the next slide, in another slide. So, do not ask them what features they want, right? Focus on what don't you love about the solutions you tried. And like I said before, right? Always ask about the past and the present, not about the future. The future is what excites you, what motivates your team, what excites your investors. It's important to keep in mind when you get product market fit, right? Because that's how you stay alive. That's how you don't become a Kodak, right? But it's important not to focus on the future now. Focus on today, now. If they give you solutions, dig into the why. Dig into the why. And I'll give you a little example right here, right? If they give you solutions, dig into the why. So a case study with Henry Ford. So Henry Ford, inventor of the car, right? Entrepreneur. And so let's say Henry Ford was talking to customers. And all of a sudden, like potential customers, let's say Henry Ford didn't create the car yet, right? He's thinking about creating the car, and he's talking to potential customers, and he asks them, well, what are you looking for in terms of travel? And the person just says, I want a faster horse, right? And Henry Ford says, okay, well, why do you want a faster horse? And they just say, well, I want to get to my location faster. That's the why. So in Henry Ford's marketing of the car, he doesn't say 4 wheels, engine, innovation, technology. You don't have to feed your car like you have to feed a horse. You don't have to like clean the manure of the car like you have to for the horse. He doesn't say any of those things. Henry Ford says in his advertising, get to your location faster, right? Because that's the why, right? Dig into the why when they give you solutions. When they tell you features, ask them why. Why do you want this feature? How often do you run into this problem, right? Some of these questions are repetitive, but so you don't have to ask them one by one. If you get the answers that you're looking for, you don't have to ask these questions, but you're looking for the frequency of the problem, right? If they have this problem every 10 years, probably not a good customer to build your product around, right? So let's say you're building a product for babies and their kids are 15. I mean, it's good to have a conversation, right? Just to get a conversation going, but you probably shouldn't build for this person because they don't have a baby, or they're not going to have they don't currently have a baby, right? Don't build for someone that is pregnant. Build for someone who has a baby. How much are you spending to solve this? If they're not spending anything, that could be fine, right? If you're building like a consumer-based company like Dropbox or Facebook, right? Because Facebook, the user is the product, right? They're selling their data, but how much are you spending to solve this problem? Maybe it's time. For Facebook, Facebook was crazy because they focused on the colleges, right? And I think that was lucky. Mark Zuckerberg was in the right place in the right time, started Facebook. If Mark Zuckerberg came up with Facebook in high school, I don't think it would have been as big. But because Mark Zuckerberg was in college at the time for Facebook, it made complete sense because college students meet new people all the time, constantly meet new people, parties, new classes, activities, right? There's so many people on campus, events, you have to keep track of so many things, right? So it's hard to keep track of so many things and so many people all the time. It's how do you invite people to parties? Like it's hard. You have to just get the word out to your friends, like text them and call them, be like, hey, we're having a party. But with Facebook, it's much easier. You just make an event. So Facebook, solved all these, like keeping track of what's going on for college students. People are spending their time on trying to solve this. They're not spending their money, but they're spending their time on solving this problem. How much would you save by solving this? Right? How much would you save? For Facebook, it saves you a ton of time because I don't have to call every single person and tell them that we're having a party. I just have to make an event and invite them. And I'm done. Right? So it saves me a ton of time. But you understand how severe the pain is. Right. So we would save like 10 minutes if we solve this problem. Okay, well, maybe this problem isn't that big of a deal for them. Right. Or maybe 10 minutes is a big deal because maybe 10 minutes multiplied by 1,000 workers is actually 10,000 minutes. And that's a lot of savings for this company. Right. So, but maybe 10 minutes for one person isn't a big deal. And maybe this is a problem you should focus on for this specific person. Maybe you should try to figure out what other problems this person has just to get it out. Is there someone you need permission from to solve this problem with the budget? Do they have control over the budget? Can they even solve this problem for themselves? If they have the problem, like I was telling you about the McDonald's person with the ice cream machine not working, right? This poor worker, constantly gets asked, hey, can I have ice cream? And maybe even gets yelled at. Right? For something that's not their fault, the ice cream machine's always broken, and they can't solve it. They tell management, and that's all they can do, right? So you have to figure out if they have control for the budget. If they don't, it's important to listen to them, right? Draw out their problems, but get an introduction from them to who can solve the problem for them, right? They might do this, they might not do this, depending on how comfortable they are with you and how good their relationship is with their manager, right? Maybe their manager just had a terrible day and they don't want to rock the boat. So they're probably like, I don't really want to intro you to them right now, maybe in 2 weeks, right? When you hear that, it's not you, it's their manager, most likely, right? So don't feel bad if they don't make the introduction. It's probably not you. It's probably just their relationship with the manager. Is this the biggest problem you have? Right now, you're trying to draw out the other problems, right? You could even ask them to rank the problems they have, right? Which problems are you spending the most time on right now, right? Which problems are the biggest pain? Which problems are the solutions not really working perfectly for, right? You could ask them, like, what are you worried about the most right now, right? And what are you doing to make those problems get better, right? What are you doing to mitigate those problems, those worries? Is this you're trying to figure out like the cost, the headache, the money, the time, and really what you're trying to figure out, what are the worst parts of your job? Right? Maybe you could just ask that. What are the worst parts of your job? Like what's the hardest thing you have to do? What's the most terrible thing you have to do? For example, I've been talking to like NFT companies, and when they start growing, Discord management becomes like really, really hard. Like managing their community becomes really difficult because sometimes there are really toxic people that come into the community. And so managing those people becomes a problem. I don't really have a solution for that, but it's interesting that that's a problem that they're frequently experiencing. Can I tell you about my product? Now, this is the last thing you should do. And the reason why you should do it is because sometimes it draws out additional things, right? This isn't really a pitch. This is you're trying to see if this draws out any additional pieces of information from this person. And I've noticed this. I've talked to people, I've talked to a lot of users, and then as soon as I tell them about my product, they're like, we're using this thing also, by the way. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me about this with the 10 other questions that I asked you previously? But like, sometimes this draws out like things that, they didn't talk about before. Remember, you're trying to figure out like hidden unmet needs, right? You're figuring out like what one feature would meet this need. And, how can I focus on this one feature specifically and do a job 10 times better than the current solutions people are using right now, right? The people that I'm talking to are using right now. And this is your minimum remarkable product, right? Your MRP, right? So if you find that hidden unmet need, the one that they're frequently experiencing, right? And the one that they're deploying their budget for, the one that they actually have the ability to solve, the one where the current solutions aren't that great, the one where you can do it 10 times better, that's what you should do, right? So with Discord, the way to talk to other people while gaming was Skype. And Skype was horrible. It was horrible because when you're gaming, let's say you're in a first-person shooter, team-based game, and it's like in a game like Counter-Strike, if you miss, you're dead. Like you need to shoot that person in the head. That sounds horrible, but it's a game, right? You need to shoot that person in the head. And if you miss, you're dead. They're going to shoot you and you're done, right? And in that type of game, like milliseconds are important. And with Skype, what Skype would do, if someone else called you while you're playing with Skype, a bit like half your screen would be like a Skype pop-up, right? So it's already terrible for gaming. And so Discord was 10 times better because it just didn't have that pop-up when someone called you. It was 10 times better automatically, right? So that was their one feature, that the pop-up wouldn't come. The pop-up just wouldn't come. And that made it 10 times better than Skype for gaming. And now they turned down a $12 billion offer from Microsoft. And what's crazy is they're worth more. They are worth much more than $12 billion, Discord. And if you're curious why, you could talk to me. So a recap: know tomorrow, know what tomorrow looks like, know what the future looks like, use it to motivate your team, use it to motivate your investors, use it to motivate yourself, but build for today. Build for today, build for what's happening right now. And listen, right? You're listening for context around the problem when you're talking to users. This context will lead you to the hidden needs and unmet needs of your users and the journey that led your users to their problems, right? And you're figuring out what solutions have they already tried and what results of those solutions, what were the results of those solutions? Were they good? Were they bad, right? And then your focus is to make one feature that's 10 times better that addresses this unmet need, right? That the users are frequently trying to solve. You're coming to your users with one problem, but you might come back with another problem, right? You need to keep a really open mind when you don't have product market fit, right? Because you can be anything, right? You can do anything. You're a kid, right? You don't tell a kid like, hey, you're going to be a firefighter when you grow up, and that's it, right? That's all you're going to do. Right? Don't come into your company thinking, I'm going to just do this one thing and that's it, right? Keep an open mind. This is a starting point, right? It's a starting point. As you talk to people, as you understand different markets, as you understand the landscape better, as you dig into these problems, you could go in a new direction. So thank you. If you want growth hacks, inspiration, that's my Twitter. Product market fit training. I don't have a course or anything, but I wrote a bunch of stuff, and I'll probably write more stuff on my website. If you have any questions, reach out to me. That's my email. Happy to always just give advice on product market fit to people. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
I love this, Pavan, and thank you so much. This has been great. People asked for you to come back, and you did not disappoint. So really appreciate you contributing your time, expertise, and wisdom to our community today. They're even asking that you come back for a part 3 potentially one day in the future. So I owe you more coffees than one, my friend. So thank you so much for everybody joining us and for you to contribute this. To everybody who joined too, we'll also get these slides to you in the follow-up email. So keep a lookout for that. Before I wrap, just one final poll that will help us understand the programming that you, our entrepreneurs in the community, need for us to provide for in the future, in addition to hosting Pavan again. So give us a moment to vote on this. Again, these help us deliver the programming that's in real time as much as we can for you, the entrepreneurs that we serve. So appreciate you all joining us. Pavan, thank you so much for joining us again today. And to everybody out there, have a great weekend and good luck. Good afternoon, good evening, and we'll see you next time.